Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming here. So Atlantic croaker has been a species that we've been very interested in and top of our list for about 10 years, but I own my business and don't have investors and very gratefully don't have any debt, but because of that, it's taken a long time to get to the point where we could afford the time and money to really start working on this species, and we started in 2022, like they said. So my farm, we're mostly a hatchery now. We primarily, the bread and butter is bait fish, pinfish, and croaker. I have broodstock of those, and we do the full cycle of those. A lot of them go out to grow out people for various reasons. And then we also hatchery produce some food fish. This year we're doing red drum. We've done them almost every year. We're going to do pompano and some striped bass. So I'm going to have to race through this because I only got 15 minutes, but we've done a lot of work on Atlantic croaker in the last 3 years. Even though in between there I moved my farm to a bigger location and we had some hurricanes hit the state of Florida. But so after 3 years of cultivation, and glad Todd's here, give him another shout out. He really started working on the species way before me, and I mean we text all the time and talk all the time, and really leveraging the work he did and the built up knowledge to platform the species off. I'm also very lucky that I got two smaller end grants, but very well utilized grants, one from the Gulf states and one from Kennedy, that because of what's happening with the federal government was paused until last week. So we finally got funding for that one. And I'll end my talk after talking about this. It looks like there's some formatting issues, but on how researchers could really help continue this work. So a lot of the work that I've done from the Gulf States grants and other grants is on the market, understanding the market. There hasn't been a lot of really well done market surveys, so we did a very comprehensive one. And in this particular species, the bait fish, is a huge market. So a long time ago in 2014, I did an analysis of different surveys and through a bunch of calculations, which are now on my website if you want to look, calculated to be a $274 million a year live bait industry just in the state of Florida alone. And that's people purchasing live bait to go fishing, period. This species has a very, very loud croaking sound that you could hear outside your tanks. We hear it all day long at our farm. They are loud, even over the pumps. So you imagine the fishermen like to have that. They're very hardy. We sell them to bait shops. They never have any mortalities. They don't die on boats. People have great feedback. And they have a very, very high market value. So recently, this is the state of Florida, and I'll go through the market surveys that we did to get here. But they're selling for $3 to $3 or $5.50 each at bait and tackle shops. And there's a huge market demand, not just for live bait, but for croaker. People have suggested it as a food fish, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then dead bait, we're currently working on that one. We're working with some aquariums. We've gotten them nutritionally evaluated, but we'll see how they shake out there. So the marketing survey that we did, I called up Florida Fish and Wildlife, and in the state of Florida, you have to get a license that you pay money for every single year to be able to sell saltwater things, including bait. And talk to the people who have this list. It's a public list, but obviously I had to sweet talk them a little bit into giving me the giant list. But there's 4 different licenses you can get: saltwater products license, wholesaler, retail, and retail other. And the guy on the phone said, oh, only one of those sells bait. The rest of them aren't supposed to sell bait. But when you read the definitions of each license, it's very confusing. And I'm sure people are paying for whatever cheap license they can get and selling whatever they want. But as you can see, there's almost 10,000 shops that have a saltwater product license in the state of Florida, 1,900 wholesale dealer. And these are, you get one license. It's not like it's the same people over and over, right? So I worked with a very good economist, Brad Gettner, and he helped me come up with sample sizes based on the variability 50-50 of them answering the question, do you sell bait? Yes versus no. And so we calculated the sample sizes based on that. And the ones that are highlighted in black, so the guy on the phone thought only the retail central was going to be selling bait, but we had a hunch that the other ones would be selling bait, so we did a 10-90, 10 of say yes to selling bait and 90% of them saying no to bait, and we also surveyed them. And it was a phone survey, so 753 phone surveys. This was our survey. We actually hung this up in the farm and asked some bait shops that we sell to help us with the survey because we wanted to make sure it was accurate to the lingo and how people would ask. And so what we did was we called these shops and we asked a series of questions. Do you sell bait? And based on the answer, you go to the next question. What kind? What do you sell them for? How often? And we went through this series of questions, and if they caught on that we're doing a survey, we would, fess up to what we're doing. We found out very quickly if a female called and did this, they asked about question 2, why we were calling. But if a male called, they barely ever caught on, so the boys at the shop got this job. We found out very quickly that the 3 front licenses, all of them sell live bait. This shocked the Fish and Wildlife people. They all said that they would sell a lot more bait if they had it. The average sale prices were highly variable, but they were 2 to 3 times higher than any previous survey, and that's because they sell in cash. So when a survey comes out that has like a university or some type of logo on it, they are not going to be telling you so many answers because they think taxman's going to come after their cash sales. But if you call on the phone and you ask how much it is, we got these massive prices. If you want to hear more about this, it was all recorded. I presented it in a long style to the Gulf States Fisheries Commission last year, and John Stickler was there. We all got recorded for prosperity. So I also did, as part of that Gulf States trial, market acceptance trial, where we took croaker that were farmed on my farm, and we gave them for free to bait shops in the west coast of Florida. And in return, they had to give us data. They had to tell us if the customer was a new or returning customer, if what they sold the croaker for. We told them what we probably would retail it to them, and they got to make up their own price in their end. And if the customer bought anything else in their store and what they bought it for, ice, beer, fishing lures, whatever it was. We did a very similar study back in 2013 with Finfish, and that's the results in that very pretty marketing thing that a marketing company did for me. But in red are the results from the croaker. So the average price was $4 a piece. They sold out within a day or two of me dropping off several hundred fish to each shop as fast as they could. 50 to 60% of the people who came in were new customers, so they're getting massive amounts of foot traffic. And on average, each customer bought $38 worth of stuff. So it's a huge increase of profit for these bait shops just to have live bait and live croaker. They're not making it from selling the croaker. They're making it from selling other stuff in their store. All right, so that was a very rush through live bait markets, huge demand, good prices. Now let's talk about food fish. And I'm going to compare a lot in the next part of my presentation to redfish because we all know a lot about redfish. Nasser just presented, and there's a lot of redfish farmers who think that they also want to do croaker. So food fish. Croaker are sold as food fish. On the left, there's a picture of them sold at a grocery store in the Carolinas. $7.99. They call them spots. This right here is a red drum, actually one of my baby fish that went to a grout farm in Florida, being sold in Publix. So they're both sold as food. Croaker are substituted a lot for red drum, even though they are slightly different. It's a smaller fillet, smaller fish, more delicate, but you kind of need to almost match the market price for red drum, which is going to be the downfall of them potentially as a food fish. So this is on my farm. This croaker, they slow down considerably when they hit reproductive size. That croaker is 13 and a half months old. Same exact fish thing, stick, wet measure thing. That redfish is 4.5 months old. So try matching the price, right? That's a lot of labor into that fish right there. The fillet yield from croaker is considerably less than a red drum, from what I've been told from the Asian market guys around me. They get about 25% fillet yield from a croaker and 40% from a red drum. So competing on the food fish market is going to be rough, but the live bait market is huge. And unlike croaker croak, red drum don't. So you're not going to compete with the red drum on the live bait market. All right, Aquaculture is the next thing that people always want to know. We have been spawning them in captivity for 3 years, but Todd's been doing it way longer than me. They spawn in captivity. I've never seen them volitionally spawn. I don't know if Todd has, but one time. All right, so they almost always have to be induced. They have very high survival. From fertilized egg to weaning, they can be up to 57%. We average about 32% survival. Little to no cannibalism, which is unlike their redfish cousins who like to eat each other all the time. High stocking density potential, very easily transported as fry. We've shipped them in planes all over the country and they've never had issues. There's diverse grow out options, RAS, ponds, but they are jumpy. You have to net over top of everything that they're in. And in the hatchery, it becomes a particular problem because we stagger our tanks every 3 weeks, so you can't put a red drum tank next to a new larval tank or your larvae will become food. And the growth to the live bait market takes about 5 months. So the ease of culture, if you compare it to red drum, the temperature range is about similar, but I can tell you, after the hurricanes this year, we didn't know there was a cold front that came through slightly after the hurricanes. Our heaters, which we don't use very often in Florida, were damaged, and our nursery system got very, very cold. And the red drum suffered. We had red drum larvae in the nursery system, and we had croaker larvae. The croaker larvae was fine. The salinity is somewhat similar, and they actually like turbid water. I have to hurry up because I'm running out of time. Culture, consistency. The consistency is the problem and what we're working on right now. We can induce them to spawn. We can get them to spawn year round. We have a 180 photothermal cycle. We only have 2 populations because each population will spawn for more than 6 months apiece. So we don't have to have, mass numbers of different types of populations. But the fertilized egg rate is kind of low, and that's what our work for Salt and Salt Kennedy will be on, that I'll talk about next. Survival is high, but the growth variation is quite high. So reproductive consistency is what we're working on right now with the Salt and Salt Kennedy grant. The egg variation from each spawn is quite variable. We have figured out if you spawn them with overprim, you'll get a good spawn once. And then after that, it falls off a cliff and you can say goodbye to those fish until next year when they spawn again. But if you are slow release spawning hormone, we can spawn them every 3 weeks for 6 months. And they give us good eggs every time. But the variation and consistency is all over the place right now. So we're really trying to hone that in. That's what the Salt and Salt Kennedy is. Working with Dr. Nicole at Moat to work on some water velocities and sex ratios. We don't think it's diet for a variety of reasons I don't have time to go into. But our Salt and Salt Kennedy was supposed to start, but we were subject to some funding freezes. And so we just got our money last week, so we're at that project. In conclusion, there's huge potential for this species and market, especially the live bait market. There's lots of data to support the market and the price and the ease of culture, but we do need to work on consistency and culture SOPs. I have this broodstock project diet project going, and we have lots of grants and collaborations. Hopefully, we've applied a lot. And we get a lot of good feedback, just not a lot of funding. And I'm doing an internal selective breeding program. We're on F2s now. So how can academia help? Really communicating and intimately collaborating with us. So that's just not on production biological research, but market research. If you want to go out and get some broodstock and know how to spawn them, there are things that will kill your fish. So worthwhile to not waste resources, time, and intellectual effort to call somebody who's done it and have us help you, or even pay, if you have some money as a consultant, the farmers and people who've done it before to come help. I've heard some academics killing a lot of fish doing it the wrong way. If you can, buy eggs, fry, and market-sized fish from farmers. That's how you support our industry. Some of my customers who were supposed to do this, one of the biggest ones had some health problems with their family, and then some of the smaller ones got taken out by hurricanes. So, we all suffer, so helping us in any way you can is great. And I think if we all leverage each other's intellectual property and time and effort, that it will save resources, time, and really help with this going forward. All right, some pictures, my farm, my kids, they'll see them at my farm a lot. Yeah, and thanks to Todd and Nicole Rohde and the other people who've really helped us. That's it.
1 minute requested for Nicole. That's it.
I'm not serving
How many bait shops?
Now you potentially supply people.
Well,
More than you can count.
over 10,000 of them have a license. It's about 15,000 of them could potentially sell live bait. I don't think all of them will. I think it's probably more out in like the 7,000 bait shop. I mean, fishing is capital Florida is the fishing capital. So I think the biggest issue with live bait that's not captured on a lot of the extension documents, there's a lot of things that aren't captured, but one of the biggest things is when you transport live bait, you have to transport the water, and the water is very heavy. So you can't go into the middle of the state and get cheap land and grow a ridiculous number of bait and think you're going to supply the whole state. You'll be spending a fortune on trucking fish. So there's a radius around every farm that it makes economic sense to truck. So what the farmers do is they actually have to be in urban centers. So if you're going to supply Miami, you have to somehow get as close as you can to Miami urban center with your farm, or Tampa, or St. Augustine, or wherever. So that's the biggest issue, moving them.